Most of us have used control to calm fear. One more check, one more rule, one more barrier. But on April 5th, 1976, that instinct ended in a Houston morgue. Reporters had come to see Howard Hughes, one of the most famous men in America. In their minds, he was still the young billionaire aviator, the man beside airplanes and headlines. A doctor opened the door and said, "No cameras." Inside was an old man, half covered by a sheet, with long silver hair. For a few seconds, they didn't know who they were looking at. That was Hughes. How does a man who could buy almost anything become someone the world can no longer recognize? Before the locked rooms, Hughes looked like the opposite of fear. He was born into oil money in Texas, then built a life around speed, risk, and precision. He made films. He built aircraft. He didn't just own machines, he flew them himself. In 1935, he set a speed record in the H1 racer, 352 miles per hour. 3 years later, he flew around the world in 3 days, 19 hours, and 17 minutes. Crowds celebrated him. Newspapers turned him into a symbol of American freedom. And that's what makes the story so disturbing. The same man who crossed oceans and continents would later spend years behind closed doors. The public saw power. They saw money. They saw someone who could force the world to move around him. But early in his life, there had already been fear around illness, germs, and health. At first, it was background noise. Later, it became the room. In 1946, Hughes crashed while testing the XF-11 in Beverly Hills. He survived, but the crash left him badly injured and in chronic pain. For a man who built his identity on control, that mattered. His body had stopped obeying. A year later, under public pressure, he took the huge H-4 Hercules onto the water. The plane rose about 25 feet and flew for 30 seconds, less than half a mile. Then, it never flew again. It looked like proof. Hughes could still answer the world. But after that, the story begins to shrink. In the 1950s, he pulled further away from public life. Rooms got darker. Access got harder. People around him didn't just bring food or messages, they followed rules. And you've probably seen a smaller version of that. A rule starts as relief, then it becomes the price of feeling safe. By 1966, Hughes arrived in Las Vegas and moved into the Desert Inn. He stayed in a bedroom of 250 square feet, curtains closed, windows sealed, maids kept out. Assistants became the wall between him and everyone else. Then the hotel wanted him to leave. Most people would pack. Hughes bought the hotel. That detail is almost unbelievable because it sounds like power. A billionaire doesn't like being pushed, so he buys the building. But listen to what the action really says. He didn't buy freedom, he bought more walls. The man who once crossed the world shaped the world so he wouldn't have to enter it. The easy explanation was that Howard Hughes was just eccentric, a strange billionaire, a rich man with impossible demands. But that explanation is too small. Psychologists later discussed his life through the lens of obsessive-compulsive symptoms, especially fear of contamination. One label doesn't explain all of him. One mechanism helps make sense of the trap. Here's the cycle. Fear appears. A ritual lowers it for a moment. Then the brain learns that the ritual was necessary, so the next fear comes back stronger. One detail captures it. The instructions for a can of peaches. Remove the label. Wash the can down to bare metal. Wash it again. Transfer the food without letting the can touch the bowl. That's not just being careful. A rule can calm fear for a minute and feed it for years. And the darkest part is the reversal. Fear of germs didn't lead to a clean, free life. It existed beside sealed windows, blocked rooms, and a body the public barely recognized. People saw character, wealth, weirdness. They missed the cage. Most of us won't live anything like Howard Hughes' final years. This isn't an invitation to diagnose yourself or anyone else, but the mechanism is familiar. Maybe it's a message you read 20 times before sending, a project you can't start until every detail feels safe, a meeting you avoid because the timing isn't perfect. One check becomes two. Two become a rule. The rule starts choosing for you. Control can feel responsible. It can even look impressive from the outside. But the question is what it costs. If a habit gives you relief for minutes but makes your world smaller for months, it may not be protecting you anymore. So maybe the final question is this. Where in my life has caution stopped protecting me and started making my world smaller?